In the bustling heart of San Francisco, nestled among gleaming skyscrapers, stood Greenwood Associates, a consulting firm renowned for its ability to scale tech companies into industry titans. Known for its high-profile clients and record-breaking deals, the firm was a beacon of excellence for the corporate world. However, beneath the surface of this elite establishment, a stark divide lingered between the executives and the lower-ranking staff, like janitors and assistants, who remained invisible to most. Angelina Turner was one of these overlooked employees, though her story was anything but ordinary. As a new janitor, she donned a simple navy blue uniform, her auburn hair neatly tied back, and her cleaning cart by her side. Her quiet demeanor helped her blend into the background, her presence almost unnoticed amidst the hum of office activity. But Angelina wasn't just a janitor, she was the founder and majority shareholder of Greenwood Associates. Years earlier, Angelina had built the firm from the ground up. But health challenges had forced her to step back, entrusting the day-to-day operations to her cousin, Luke Turner, who now served as CEO. For years, she had observed the company's growth from a distance. Now, she was back, undercover, to assess the integrity of the empire she had created. Each morning, Angelina arrived at the office before the sun fully rose. As she scrubbed floors and emptied trash bins, she also watched, listened, and learned. The glass-walled offices and pristine conference rooms contrasted starkly with her modest cleaning cart. Yet, her keen eyes were fixed on the people, not the polished surfaces. Liam Carter, the CEO, immediately caught her attention. Imposing and impeccably dressed, Liam exuded an air of entitlement. His dismissive attitude toward employees, particularly the administrative staff and janitors, was both unsettling and infuriating to Angelina. His arrogance served as a stark reminder of how far the firm had drifted from her founding values. Adding to her dismay was Monica Hayes, the chief strategy officer, whose biting remarks often targeted the support staff. One morning, as Angelina swept outside Liam's office, she overheard a conversation between the two. "The janitorial staff here is abysmal," Monica sneered. "It's embarrassing for a firm of our status." Liam chuckled, his voice dripping with derision. "They should be grateful they have jobs at all. It's not like they're qualified for anything else." Angelina's grip tightened on the broom handle as anger surged through her. The company she had built on respect and diligence had fallen into the hands of individuals who embodied neither. As days turned into weeks, Angelina's observations painted an even grimmer picture. Liam wasn't just arrogant, he created a toxic environment where fear and intimidation reigned. He berated junior staff, blamed others for his mistakes, and dismissed ideas that didn't align with his own. To Angelina, his leadership was a betrayal of everything Greenwood Associates once stood for. But it wasn't just his professional behavior that disturbed her, it was how he treated her. Initially, Liam's comments were merely dismissive, but they soon took on a darker tone. One morning, as Angelina mopped the break room, Liam approached her, his gaze lingering inappropriately. "Angelina," he said with a sly smile, "you're wasting your talents cleaning. Someone as attractive as you deserves better." His words sent a chill down her spine. He wasn't just demeaning her work, he was crossing a line. Angelina kept her composure, offering a polite response. "I'm happy with my job, thank you." But Liam's smirk suggested he wasn't finished. Over the next few days, his behavior grew bolder. He made comments about her appearance, leaned too close when speaking to her, and found excuses to linger in her presence. One evening, as Angelina was leaving the office, Liam confronted her in the parking garage. The dimly lit space only heightened her unease. "Angelina," he said, his voice low, "you've been working hard. Maybe too hard for someone like you." His words were laced with insinuation, and his proximity made her stomach churn. "You could have a better position," he continued, his tone turning predatory. "If you're willing to cooperate." The threat in his words was unmistakable. Angelina's heart raced, but she refused to show fear. Meeting his gaze, she said firmly, "I'm happy where I am." Her tone left no room for argument, but Liam smirked, clearly enjoying the power he thought he held. The harassment didn't stop. Each encounter left Angelina feeling angrier and more determined. She knew she couldn't confront Liam as a janitor, but as the true owner of Greenwood Associates, she could bring about real change. One fateful evening, as she cleaned the executive floor, Liam cornered her again. His words were brazen, his demeanor threatening. But this time, Angelina stood her ground. Her voice was steady as she said, "Liam, you've crossed the line. If this continues, you'll regret it." Liam laughed, brushing off her warning. "And what are you going to do about it?" he sneered. But Angelina didn't flinch. Inside, she felt the weight of her resolve. It was time to reveal the truth and reclaim her company. Angelina spent the following weeks gathering evidence, not just of Liam's behavior toward her but of the toxic culture he had cultivated. She documented his inappropriate comments, his mistreatment of employees, and his underhanded business tactics. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became, Greenwood Associates needed a complete overhaul. But Angelina knew she couldn't do it alone. She began reaching out to trusted allies within the company, quietly enlisting their support for the reckoning to come. As she plotted her next move, Angelina reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. She had built Greenwood Associates with a vision of excellence and integrity. Now, she was ready to fight for those values, no matter the cost. The story was far from over. Angelina's mission was just beginning, and the stakes had never been higher. Would she succeed in exposing Liam and restoring her company's legacy? Only time would tell. Angelina spent the next few days carefully planning her next steps. Her interactions with the janitorial staff revealed their struggles and their fear of losing their jobs. She listened to their stories, realizing that Liam and Monica's decisions had far-reaching consequences. Angelina felt the weight of their pain and knew she couldn't fail. Yet, revealing herself prematurely would risk undermining her efforts. She needed to remain patient, collecting enough evidence to bring the truth to light. Her late-night research sessions in her tiny apartment became the starting point of a mission that would test her strength and resolve. The turning point came during an office-wide meeting. Liam and Monica stood at the front, speaking about cost-cutting measures. "We need to focus on profitability," Monica declared, her tone cold. "That means re-evaluating unnecessary expenses, like the janitorial staff." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Angelina, stationed at the back with her cleaning supplies, clenched her fists. She watched as Liam nodded, a smug grin on his face. It was clear neither of them cared about the lives their decisions would impact. The callousness in their voices fueled Angelina's determination to take action. Later that evening, Angelina stayed behind after hours, sneaking into the archives room. With her insider knowledge as the founder, she knew exactly where to find the documents that would expose Liam's mismanagement. She combed through financial records, contracts, and emails, uncovering a trail of unethical practices. The evidence painted a grim picture. Liam had been embezzling funds and misreporting profits to cover his tracks. Monica had approved several questionable deals, securing personal gains at the expense of employees. Angelina took photos of the documents, knowing these would be crucial in her fight to reclaim the company. Angelina's resolve was tested when Liam caught her cleaning near his office late one night. His steps were slow, deliberate, as he approached her. "You're here late again," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "You know, you're too dedicated for someone in your position. Maybe I could offer you something more rewarding." Angelina forced a neutral expression, her heart pounding. She needed to remain calm and avoid suspicion. "I'm just finishing up," she replied evenly, turning back to her work. Liam's gaze lingered, but he eventually walked away, leaving her seething with anger and disgust. The next day, Angelina decided to confide in one of the employees she trusted most, Rachel, a longtime executive assistant. Rachel had always been kind and empathetic, often standing up for the support staff when others dismissed them. Angelina approached her carefully, choosing her words wisely. "Rachel, if you had proof that the leadership was corrupt, what would you do?" she asked. Rachel looked startled but intrigued. "I'd do everything in my power to expose them," she replied firmly. Encouraged by her response, Angelina revealed some of the evidence she had gathered. Rachel's eyes widened in shock, then hardened with resolve. Rachel agreed to help Angelina, and together they began forming a plan. They would present the evidence to the board of directors, bypassing Liam and Monica entirely. But first, they needed more allies. Rachel reached out to other employees who had suffered under Liam's leadership, carefully gauging their willingness to speak out. Slowly, they built a coalition of voices, each with their own story of mistreatment and injustice. Angelina felt a glimmer of hope for the first time in weeks. She wasn't alone in this fight anymore. With each new ally, her resolve to expose the truth grew stronger. As Angelina continued her undercover work, she noticed changes in the office dynamic. Word of Liam's inappropriate behavior and shady dealings had started to spread among the staff. Whispers filled the hallways, and employees began questioning his authority more openly. Liam, oblivious to the growing dissent, continued to carry himself with arrogance. Monica, however, seemed more on edge, her sharp tone betraying her unease. Angelina knew they were running out of time. If Liam or Monica discovered her true identity or caught wind of her plan, everything would fall apart. She needed to act soon. One evening, Angelina returned to her apartment to find an unexpected visitor waiting for her, Luke Turner, her cousin and the company's official CEO. Luke looked concerned, his usual confident demeanor replaced with uncertainty. "I've been hearing rumors," he said, stepping inside. "People are saying there's unrest at Greenwood, that employees are unhappy." Angelina hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But Luke's earnest expression convinced her to speak. She showed him the evidence she had collected, her voice trembling with anger as she recounted Liam's actions. Luke listened intently, his face darkening with each revelation. "We need to fix this," he said. Luke's support gave Angelina the final push she needed. Together, they devised a strategy to confront the board. Luke would use his position as CEO to call an emergency meeting, while Angelina would present the evidence anonymously at first, revealing her identity only when absolutely necessary. It was a risky plan, but they had no other choice. The company's future depended on their ability to act decisively. As they finalized their preparations, Angelina felt a mix of fear and anticipation. She had spent years building Greenwood Associates, now she was ready to fight for its soul. The night before the board meeting, Angelina couldn't sleep. Memories of her early days at Greenwood flooded her mind, the long hours, the sacrifices, the triumphs. She thought of the janitors, receptionists, and assistants who kept the company running, the very people Liam and Monica had disrespected. This wasn't just about exposing corruption, it was about restoring the dignity and values Greenwood was built on. Angelina stared at the city skyline outside her window, her reflection a reminder of how far she had come. Tomorrow, she would take the first step toward reclaiming her legacy. The day of the meeting arrived, and Angelina felt a surge of adrenaline as she stepped into the boardroom, disguised in her janitorial uniform. Luke had already informed the board members about the need for an emergency session, but he hadn't told them why. Liam and Monica were present, their expressions ranging from confusion to annoyance. Angelina stayed in the shadows, observing as Luke began his opening remarks. "Today, we're here to address serious concerns about the leadership of Greenwood Associates," he said, his voice firm. The room fell silent, tension thick in the air. Angelina watched as Liam shifted uncomfortably in his seat, his usual arrogance replaced with a flicker of unease. Monica crossed her arms defensively, her sharp eyes scanning the room for clues. Luke continued, his tone growing more assertive. We've received credible evidence of misconduct at the highest levels of this company. It's time for the truth to come to light. At that moment, Angelina stepped forward, her heart pounding. The room turned to her, confusion etched on their faces. She placed the stack of evidence on the table, her voice steady. "This is just the beginning," she said. Angelina began her presentation, detailing the unethical practices she had uncovered. She highlighted specific instances of Liam's harassment and Monica's complicity, using the evidence she had gathered to back up her claims. The board members listened intently, their expressions shifting from disbelief to outrage. Liam attempted to interrupt several times, but Luke silenced him with a sharp glare. Monica's face paled as the weight of the accusations sank in. Angelina kept her focus, knowing that every word counted. This was her chance to set things right, and she wasn't going to let fear hold her back. Though the board members were clearly shocked by the revelations, Angelina knew her work wasn't done. She needed to win their trust and convince them to take action. This company was built on integrity and respect, she said, her voice filled with emotion. We've lost sight of those values, but it's not too late to change. Her words resonated with several board members, who nodded in agreement. Liam, however, remained defiant, his expression darkening with each passing moment. Angelina could feel the tension building in the room, knowing the next steps would determine Greenwood's future. The confrontation reached a boiling point when Liam stood up, slamming his fists on the table. "This is absurd," he shouted, his voice laced with desperation. "Who are you to make these accusations? You're just a janitor." Angelina took a deep breath, her gaze steady. "I'm more than a janitor," she replied, her voice calm but firm. "I'm the founder of Greenwood and Associates." Gasps filled the room as her words sank in. Liam's confidence crumbled, his face a mixture of shock and disbelief. For the first time, Angelina felt the power shift in her favor. The board members erupted in murmurs, their attention now fully on Angelina. She recounted her journey, from building the company to stepping back for health reasons and entrusting leadership to her cousin. "I came back undercover to see how my company was being run," she explained. "What I found was a culture of greed, disrespect, and corruption." Her words struck a chord with the board, who began questioning Liam and Monica directly. As the tension in the room grew, Angelina knew the battle was far from over. But for the first time, she felt hope that justice might prevail. Angelina stood tall, her confession still echoing in the silent boardroom. The weight of her words had shifted the atmosphere entirely. Some board members looked at her with newfound respect, while others appeared uneasy, unsure how to process the truth. However, Liam's reaction was explosive. "This is a setup," he spat, his voice quivering with anger. "You can't just waltz in here with accusations and think you'll get away with it." Angelina's gaze didn't falter. "The evidence speaks for itself," she replied firmly. But deep down, she felt the pangs of anxiety. She knew Liam wouldn't go down without a fight. As the meeting continued, Luke stood in Angelina's corner, backing her claims with authority. He demanded that the board take immediate action to investigate Liam and Monica's misconduct. However, the tension was interrupted by a sudden phone call. One of the board members answered, their face growing pale as they listened. They quickly whispered something to the chairperson, who then announced grimly, "We've just received news that one of our factories overseas has collapsed due to negligence. There are reports of casualties." Angelina felt her heart sink. Tragedy had struck at the worst possible time. The room erupted into chaos as board members scrambled to understand the situation. Angelina remained still, her mind racing. She knew this wasn't a coincidence. Under Liam's leadership, corners had been cut to maximize profits, safety regulations ignored. Now, lives had been lost because of his greed. Liam paled but tried to maintain his composure. "This has nothing to do with me," he protested. "We've always complied with international standards." Angelina slammed her hand on the table, her voice breaking. "This is exactly what happens when greed replaces humanity," she said, tears forming in her eyes. The tragedy cast a heavy shadow over the room. Board members began pointing fingers, some blaming Liam directly, while others hesitated to take sides. Luke stepped in, his voice commanding. "We need to focus on the immediate crisis," he said. "But this incident only underscores the need for a leadership change. Lives were lost today because of decisions made in this room." Angelina felt a lump in her throat as she imagined the families affected by the factory collapse. She had built Greenwood to create opportunities, not to exploit people. The weight of that failure pressed heavily on her shoulders. News of the collapse spread quickly, sparking protests outside Greenwood's headquarters. Angelina watched from the window as a crowd gathered, holding signs demanding justice for the victims. Among them were former employees who had been laid off, their anger fueled by years of mistreatment. The voices of the marginalized were finally being heard, but it came at a devastating cost. Angelina turned to Luke. "We have to face them," she said, her voice trembling. Luke hesitated but nodded. Together, they stepped outside, greeted by a sea of angry, tear-streaked faces. Angelina's heart broke as she saw the pain they carried. A woman in the crowd stepped forward, clutching a photo of her son who had worked at the factory. "My boy died because of your greed," she screamed, her voice cracking. "How many more lives will it take for you to care?" Angelina felt tears stream down her face. She stepped closer, ignoring Luke's attempts to hold her back. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely audible. "I failed you, and I'll do everything in my power to make this right." The woman's expression softened slightly, but the pain in her eyes remained. Angelina knew words weren't enough. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere remained tense. Liam sat silently, his arrogance replaced by fear. Monica, on the other hand, was unraveling, her confident facade crumbling. "This wasn't my fault," she stammered, addressing the board. "I just followed orders." But the evidence Angelina had presented, coupled with the tragedy at the factory, left little room for doubt. The board chairperson finally spoke. "An independent investigation will begin immediately," they announced. "Liam Carter and Monica Hayes are hereby suspended, effective immediately." The decision was a small victory, but it did little to ease the grief that hung over the company. Angelina returned to her apartment that evening, exhausted and emotionally drained. She sat by the window, staring at the city lights, her mind replaying the day's events. The factory collapse was a stark reminder of how far Greenwood had strayed from its founding principles. As the founder, Angelina felt a deep sense of responsibility for the lives lost. She knew she couldn't undo the past, but she vowed to honor the victims by rebuilding the company with integrity. Yet, the weight of her guilt was crushing, and she wondered if she would ever find redemption. In the following weeks, Angelina and Luke worked tirelessly to address the fallout from the collapse. They set up a relief fund for the victims' families, allocating a significant portion of their personal wealth to ensure the families received adequate support. Angelina personally visited the affected communities, listening to their stories and offering apologies. But not everyone was willing to forgive. In one particularly painful encounter, a grieving father refused to shake her hand. "No amount of money can bring my daughter back," he said coldly. Angelina nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know," she whispered. Meanwhile, the investigation into Liam and Monica's misconduct revealed even more corruption than Angelina had anticipated. It wasn't just the factory safety violations, there were fraudulent contracts, embezzlement schemes, and evidence of bribery to cover up illegal practices. The findings were damning, and both Liam and Monica faced criminal charges. Though Angelina felt a sense of justice, it was bittersweet. The damage they had caused was irreversible, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she had failed to prevent it. The scars left by their actions would take years to heal, both for the company and for Angelina herself. Despite the ongoing challenges, Angelina began implementing changes to rebuild Greenwood from the ground up. She reinstated policies that prioritized employee well-being, ensuring fair wages and improved working conditions. She also established a transparency committee to prevent future misconduct. Employees who had once felt voiceless now had a seat at the table. Angelina hoped these changes would restore faith in the company, but she knew it would take time. Trust was fragile, and the wounds caused by Liam and Monica's greed ran deep. Still, Angelina pressed forward, determined to honor the sacrifices made along the way. Amidst the rebuilding efforts, Angelina faced personal challenges as well. Her health, which had forced her to step back years ago, began to deteriorate under the immense stress. Doctors warned her to slow down, but she couldn't bring herself to stop. Greenwood was her life's work, and she felt an unshakable duty to see it through. Luke, noticing her declining condition, urged her to delegate more responsibilities. "You can't carry this burden alone," he said gently. But Angelina struggled to let go. The guilt and grief she carried made her feel like she had to shoulder everything herself. One night, as Angelina worked late in her office, she received a call from Rachel. "There's something you need to see," Rachel said, her voice shaky. Angelina immediately rushed to the headquarters, where Rachel showed her a letter left anonymously on her desk. It was from one of the factory workers who had survived the collapse. The letter detailed the unsafe working conditions they had endured and the fear they felt speaking out. "We knew something like this would happen," the letter read. But no one listened. Angelina clutched the letter, her heart breaking anew. The letter reignited Angelina's resolve. She decided to launch a new initiative focused on worker safety, both domestically and abroad. She worked with industry experts to develop stringent safety standards and partnered with advocacy groups to ensure they were enforced. The initiative was named after the community affected by the factory collapse, serving as a constant reminder of the lives lost. Angelina hoped it would be a step toward healing, both for the company and for herself. But the pain of the tragedy lingered, a heavy shadow that followed her everywhere she went. As months passed, Greenwood began to regain its footing. The changes Angelina implemented started to make a difference, and employee morale improved. The public, too, began to notice the company's efforts to rebuild with integrity. But Angelina's personal struggles continued. The guilt she carried took a toll on her mental health, and she often found herself awake at night, haunted by the faces of the victims. Luke and Rachel tried to support her, but Angelina felt isolated, unable to share the full extent of her pain. She threw herself into her work, hoping it would bring her peace. One day, while visiting a memorial for the factory victims, Angelina encountered the woman who had accused her of greed during the protest. The woman, now calmer, approached Angelina hesitantly. "I've seen what you've been doing," she said softly. "I still don't forgive you, but I see that you're trying to make things right." Angelina nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I'll never stop trying," she replied. The encounter, though brief, gave Angelina a glimmer of hope. She couldn't change the past, but she could honor the victims by ensuring their sacrifices weren't in vain. The boardroom dynamics had shifted dramatically since Liam and Monica's removal. New leaders were appointed, individuals who shared Angelina's vision for a more ethical Greenwood. But the road ahead was still fraught with challenges. Shareholders were wary, and the company's reputation remained fragile. Angelina knew it would take years to fully recover, but she was committed to the journey. As she sat in a meeting discussing the company's future, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. The pain of the past would never fully fade, but it had given her a clarity she hadn't felt in years. As Angelina left the boardroom that day, she felt the faintest flicker of hope. For the first time in months, there was a sense of unity among the leadership team. The decision to move forward with a more ethical and inclusive Greenwood had been unanimous. Walking through the halls of the company she built, she noticed small signs of change, employees smiling, greeting her warmly, and speaking up during meetings. But amidst the progress, she still carried the weight of her past decisions. Her journey wasn't just about rebuilding Greenwood, it was about reclaiming her own sense of purpose. Late one evening, Angelina found herself sitting in the employee lounge, a place she had rarely visited during her years as a janitor. She looked around at the modest furniture and the bulletin board covered in colorful flyers. She noticed one flyer in particular, a thank you note from an employee advocacy group, expressing gratitude for the safety reforms she had implemented. Tears welled up in her eyes as she realized that, despite the tragedy and setbacks, her efforts were starting to make a real impact. The note reminded her why she had founded Greenwood in the first place. Meanwhile, Luke continued to push Angelina to prioritize her health. "You've done more than anyone could have expected," he said one evening. "But you're not invincible, Angelina. The company needs you alive, not burnt out." Angelina smiled weakly, acknowledging the truth in his words. She had spent so much time focused on fixing the company that she had neglected her own well-being. "I'll try," she promised, though she wasn't sure how to let go of the relentless drive that had sustained her. Still, Luke's words lingered, planting a seed of self-care that she couldn't ignore. One of the most transformative moments came when Angelina decided to host an open forum for all employees, from executives to janitors. Standing on the stage in the packed auditorium, she shared her story, the real story. She spoke about starting Greenwood, stepping back due to health issues, and returning undercover as a janitor to see the company through fresh eyes. Her voice broke as she recounted the tragedy of the factory collapse and the lives lost. "I failed you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I promised to do everything in my power to make this right." The room was silent for a moment before a young woman in the audience stood up. "You may have made mistakes," she said, her voice steady. "But it takes courage to admit them and work to fix them. Thank you for being honest with us." Applause erupted, and more employees stood, sharing their own experiences of feeling overlooked or unheard. Angelina listened intently, humbled by their resilience and determination. In that moment, she realized that Greenwood's greatest strength wasn't its revenue or reputation, it was its people. Together, they could rebuild the company into something truly meaningful. As the months went by, Angelina began to see the fruits of her labor. Employee satisfaction surveys showed significant improvement, and productivity was steadily increasing. Greenwood's new safety initiative became a benchmark for the industry, with other companies adopting similar practices. But the most rewarding moments for Angelina were the personal connections she forged with her employees. One day, a janitor approached her in the hallway, a shy smile on his face. "Thank you for what you've done," he said quietly. "It means a lot to people like me." Angelina smiled, her heart swelling with gratitude. Inspired by these connections, Angelina decided to start a mentorship program within Greenwood. The program paired executives with employees from all levels, fostering a culture of mutual respect and understanding. Angelina herself became a mentor, working closely with a young marketing associate named Mia. Through their weekly sessions, Mia shared her dreams of launching a nonprofit to support women in underserved communities. "You have the passion and drive to make it happen," Angelina encouraged her. Seeing Mia's confidence grow reminded Angelina of her younger self, full of ambition and hope. It was a reminder that change started with individuals. One evening, Angelina received a letter from the family of one of the factory victims. She hesitated before opening it, fearing more accusations of blame. Instead, she was surprised to find a heartfelt message. The letter thanked her for her efforts to support the affected families and for taking accountability for the tragedy. "We can't bring our loved ones back," it read, but knowing you're working to prevent this from happening again brings us some peace." Angelina wept as she read the words. It was the validation she hadn't realized she needed, a sign that healing was possible. Though progress was being made, there were still moments of doubt. Angelina often questioned whether she was doing enough or if her efforts would ever truly make up for the past. But in those moments, she found strength in the people around her, Luke's unwavering support, Rachel's fierce determination, and the employees who continued to show up and give their best every day. They reminded her that redemption wasn't about erasing mistakes but about learning from them and moving forward with integrity. Together, they were proving that even in the face of tragedy, hope could prevail. As Greenwood celebrated its first profitable quarter since the collapse, Angelina addressed the company at a gathering in the newly renovated cafeteria. "This isn't just about numbers," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "It's about rebuilding trust and creating a place where everyone feels valued. We've come a long way, but there's still work to be done." The room erupted in applause, and Angelina felt a wave of pride. For the first time in years, she believed Greenwood had a future worth fighting for, a future rooted in empathy, accountability, and the shared determination of its people. To her surprise, Angelina began receiving invitations to speak at conferences about ethical leadership and corporate accountability. At first, she was hesitant, feeling unworthy of the spotlight. But Luke encouraged her, saying, "Your story can inspire others to make meaningful changes in their own companies." At her first event, Angelina shared her journey, including the highs, the lows, and the lessons she had learned along the way. The audience listened intently, and by the end of her speech, she received a standing ovation. It was a moment of validation, proof that even broken paths could lead to redemption. One day, Angelina visited the memorial built for the factory victims. The site, adorned with flowers and photographs, served as a place of reflection for families and employees alike. Angelina knelt by the memorial, placing a bouquet of white lilies at its base. "I'll never forget you," she whispered. "Your sacrifice won't be in vain." As she stood, a young girl approached her, holding a small, handmade card. "This is for you," the girl said shyly. Angelina opened the card to find a drawing of a sun breaking through storm clouds, with the words, "Thank you for bringing the light back." The card became a symbol of Angelina's journey, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was always a glimmer of hope. She kept it on her desk as she continued her work, pushing Greenwood to new heights while staying true to the principles she had once forgotten. Though the road was still difficult, each step forward brought a little more healing. Angelina knew she couldn't change the past, but she could honor it by building a future filled with compassion, integrity, and resilience. Together with her team, she was determined to make Greenwood a force for good. The next chapter of Angelina's journey began with an unexpected challenge. One of Greenwood's largest clients, Orion Technologies, announced they were pulling their contract due to concerns about the firm's public image. The decision sent shockwaves through the company, with employees fearing layoffs and further setbacks. Instead of panicking, Angelina saw this as an opportunity. She reached out to Orion's leadership, proposing an in-person meeting to address their concerns. "We've made mistakes," she admitted in her email, "but we're committed to change. Let us show you how." Her honesty struck a chord, and the meeting was scheduled. The conference room was tense as Angelina and her team sat across from Orion's executives. She started the meeting with a heartfelt presentation, detailing Greenwood's recent reforms and their commitment to ethical practices. "This isn't just about saving face," she said. "It's about doing what's right for our employees, our clients, and the communities we serve." To drive the point home, she shared testimonials from employees whose lives had improved under the new leadership. By the end of the meeting, Orion's CEO leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "You've convinced me," he said. "Let's give this partnership another shot." The news of Orion's renewed contract was met with cheers throughout Greenwood's offices. It was a turning point, not just for the company's finances but for its morale. Angelina used the momentum to implement even more changes. She introduced profit sharing for all employees, ensuring that everyone, from executives to janitors, benefited from the company's success. The initiative was met with overwhelming support, fostering a sense of unity that had been missing for years. Angelina knew that real change wasn't just about policies, it was about creating a culture where everyone felt valued and empowered to contribute. Amid the progress, Angelina found herself drawn to one of Greenwood's community outreach projects. The company had partnered with a local organization to provide job training for underserved populations. Visiting the training center, Angelina met a single mother named Maria, who was learning coding through the program. "I never thought I'd have a chance like this," Maria said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But now, I can give my kids a better future." Angelina felt a lump in her throat. Meeting people like Maria reminded her of her own struggles and why she had started Greenwood in the first place. Inspired by Maria's story, Angelina decided to expand Greenwood's outreach initiatives. She launched a mentorship program for women in tech, pairing them with industry veterans to help break down barriers in a male-dominated field. The program quickly gained traction, with participants sharing their success stories at company events. One young woman, Nina, tearfully recounted how the program had given her the confidence to apply for a leadership role. "I never thought I could lead," she said. "But now I'm managing my own team." Angelina's heart swelled with pride, knowing that Greenwood was not just a company but a catalyst for change. As Greenwood's reputation began to recover, Angelina was invited to speak at a high-profile tech summit. The theme of the event was "Leadership in the Face of Adversity," and Angelina knew she had a story worth sharing. Standing on the stage, she spoke candidly about her journey, building Greenwood, stepping away, and returning to face the consequences of her own decisions. "Leadership isn't about perfection," she said. "It's about accountability, growth, and the willingness to rebuild when things fall apart." Her words resonated with the audience, earning her a standing ovation and sparking conversations about ethical leadership. Back at the office, Angelina noticed a change in her employees. They walked with a newfound sense of pride, their interactions filled with warmth and camaraderie. One day, while walking through the break room, she overheard a group of employees planning a surprise baby shower for a colleague. "It's little moments like these," Angelina thought, "that show me we're on the right path." She smiled to herself, feeling a sense of fulfillment that no financial success could replicate. Greenwood was no longer just a workplace, it was a community where people genuinely cared for one another. Despite the progress, there were still challenges to overcome. A report revealed that some departments were resistant to the new changes, clinging to old habits and hierarchies. Angelina decided to address the issue head-on, hosting a series of town hall meetings to hear employees' concerns. "Change isn't easy," she admitted during one session. "But it's necessary if we want to build something we can all be proud of." Her willingness to listen and engage with dissenting voices earned her respect, even from skeptics. Slowly but surely, the resistance began to fade, replaced by a shared commitment to the company's vision. One of the most emotional moments came when Angelina was approached by an older employee named Harold, who had been with Greenwood since its inception. "I've seen this company go through so many changes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I've never been prouder to work here than I am now. Thank you for not giving up on us." Angelina was deeply moved by his words, seeing them as a testament to the progress they had made together. She realized that rebuilding Greenwood wasn't just about policies and profits, it was about restoring faith and trust. As Greenwood continued to thrive, Angelina received a letter from one of the families affected by the factory tragedy. The letter thanked her for her efforts to support the victims and their families, noting the changes she had made to prevent such a disaster from happening again. "We can't change the past," the letter read, "but knowing you're working to create a better future means more than words can express." Angelina held the letter close, tears streaming down her face. It was a reminder of the weight she carried, but also of the redemption she was slowly achieving. One day, Angelina visited a local school that Greenwood had partnered with to promote STEM education for underprivileged students. She was greeted by a group of enthusiastic children, their faces lighting up as she entered the room. During her visit, a young girl named Mia approached her with a drawing of a rocket ship. "One day, I want to build rockets," Mia said with a shy smile. Angelina knelt down to meet her gaze, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "You can do anything you set your mind to," she said. "And we'll be here to help you every step of the way." Angelina's connection to the community deepened as she continued to engage with Greenwood's outreach programs. She attended career fairs, hosted workshops, and even volunteered at a local food bank alongside her employees. These experiences reminded her that true leadership extended beyond the walls of an office. It was about using her influence to uplift others and create opportunities for those who had been overlooked. Each interaction fueled her determination to make Greenwood a company that not only thrived but also gave back. The more she gave, the more she felt her own sense of purpose being restored. As Greenwood flourished under Angelina's leadership, she realized the importance of empowering others to step into their own strengths. She began hosting monthly Voices of Greenwood sessions, where employees from all levels could share ideas, challenges, and personal stories. During one session, a young janitor named Ben shared how his late-night shifts inspired him to write poetry. "This company has shown me that even the smallest voices matter," he said, reading a heartfelt poem about resilience. His words resonated deeply with Angelina, reminding her of her own journey in the transformative power of being heard. Amid this period of growth, Angelina decided to personally mentor a select group of employees. Among them was Claire, a quiet analyst whose ideas often went unnoticed in meetings. Angelina encouraged Claire to present her strategies during an executive briefing. Nervously, Claire delivered a presentation that stunned the leadership team with its clarity and innovation. By the end, she received a standing ovation. "I never thought I'd be standing here," Claire said afterward, tears in her eyes. "Thank you for believing in me." Angelina felt immense pride, knowing her encouragement had helped someone step into their potential. One of Angelina's most ambitious initiatives was the Greenwood Cares program, which pledged a percentage of the company's profits to local charities and environmental causes. The program gained widespread attention, earning Greenwood accolades and solidifying its reputation as a socially responsible organization. "It's not just about business," Angelina said during a press conference. "It's about making a positive impact." Seeing Greenwood's name associated with meaningful change brought Angelina a sense of fulfillment she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just a company anymore, it was a force for good, changing lives in ways she had only dreamed of. But not everyone embraced the changes. A faction within the board, led by a veteran named Mr. Caldwell, resisted Angelina's reforms, accusing her of focusing too much on social issues at the expense of profits. During a heated board meeting, Mr. Caldwell demanded Angelina scale back the initiatives. "We're here to make money, not play philanthropist," he scoffed. Angelina met his gaze, unwavering. "If profits are our only priority, we've already failed," she replied firmly. Her conviction silenced the room, and one by one, other board members voiced their support for her vision. As the company continued to evolve, Angelina found herself reflecting on her own journey. One evening, she sat in her modest apartment, looking through old photographs of her early days building Greenwood. Among them was a picture of her with her father, a man who had taught her the value of hard work and compassion. "You always told me to do what's right, even when it's hard," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. At that moment, she felt his presence, as if he were reminding her that she was on the right path. An unexpected challenge arose when a major investor threatened to pull their funding unless Angelina reversed some of the reforms. The threat jeopardized Greenwood's future, but Angelina refused to compromise her principles. "If we lose funding, we'll rebuild from the ground up," she told her team. Her determination inspired a wave of loyalty among employees, many of whom offered to take pay cuts to keep the company afloat. Touched by their support, Angelina doubled down on finding alternative solutions, eventually securing a new investor who shared Greenwood's values. It was a victory that reinforced her belief in standing firm. One day, Angelina received an invitation to speak at a university commencement ceremony. She stood before the graduating class, sharing the lessons she had learned. "Success isn't just about what you achieve," she said, her voice steady and heartfelt. "It's about who you lift up along the way. Remember, the greatest impact you'll ever make isn't in boardrooms, it's in the lives you touch." Her words resonated deeply, leaving the audience inspired. Students approached her afterward, thanking her for reminding them that integrity and compassion could coexist with ambition. Amid the professional triumphs, Angelina found time to reconnect with her personal life. She rekindled her relationship with old friends and joined a community choir, rediscovering her love for music. Singing brought her solace, a reminder that life was about more than work. During a performance at a charity event, she saw familiar faces in the audience, Greenwood employees who had come to support her. Their applause felt different, warmer, more personal. It was a testament to the bond she had built not just as a leader but as a person. One of the most profound moments came when Angelina visited a rural community where Greenwood had funded a school renovation. She met children who had once studied in crumbling classrooms but now had access to modern facilities. A young boy named Sam handed her a handmade thank you card, his smile radiant. "Because of you, I want to be a teacher," he said. Angelina felt a lump in her throat. She knelt to meet his gaze, her voice soft. "You're going to change the world, Sam," she said, realizing that this was the legacy she wanted to leave behind. As Greenwood's successes multiplied, Angelina continued to face personal struggles. The scars of her past, the tragedies, the betrayals, were still with her, but they no longer defined her. Therapy and meditation became her anchors, helping her navigate the complexities of her life. She often spoke openly about her challenges, encouraging others to prioritize their mental health. Her vulnerability broke down barriers, creating a culture of openness within Greenwood. "Strength isn't about hiding your pain," she said during a company meeting. "It's about facing it, learning from it, and using it to grow." In her final major act as Greenwood's leader, Angelina announced the creation of the Turner Foundation, named after her father. The foundation focused on providing scholarships, mentorship programs, and community development initiatives. At the launch event, Angelina spoke about her father's influence and how his values had shaped her journey. "This foundation is not just my way of giving back," she said. "It's a way to honor the man who taught me that true success lies in service to others." The applause was thunderous, but it was the silent pride in her heart that mattered most. Angelina's story reached its conclusion with a profound life lesson. Success isn't measured by wealth or accolades but by the lives we uplift and the principles we stand for. As she prepared to step back from Greenwood to focus on the foundation, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Greenwood had become more than a company, it was a community, a legacy, a testament to what could be achieved when integrity, compassion, and determination converged. Angelina's journey reminded everyone that no matter how dark the path, the light of purpose and resilience could guide them to greatness. Please share your thoughts in the comments section and press the subscription button for notification of real-life story like this.